Hi there, and welcome to Studio SN, your place for card making, rubber stamping, and paper crafting tutorials. My name is Sara Naumann, and I'm so very glad you're here. Today I want to share a fun way to use your stencils and acrylic paints to create an easy background. And you can see here this area has been stenciled, and I've also painted in some of the designs on that stenciled piece with my acrylic paints. And this is a really easy process to do, so let's take a look. First of all, I'm going to bring in the stencil that I'm using, and as you can see, it has been well used and well loved. The stencils do clean really easily with soap and water. You may want to give them a bit of a scrub if you are as hard on them as I am. Now, to do this technique, what I'm going to do, working onto my craft sheet, I'm just going to slip a piece of scrap paper underneath just to keep things tidy for the video. Now, the stencil that I'm using is one that I've designed for PaperArtsy, and this is the PS102 stencil design. I call it a squashy dots look. And I'm going to be using some of the PaperArtsy Fresco Finish Chalk Acrylics. And this is in the Baltic Blue. This is an opaque design, so that's going to give me really nice crisp coverage and beautiful dark color. I also need to have my brayer on hand, and I'm going to be working with a piece of smooth white cardstock. So the first thing I want to do is kind of move this over a little bit. I'm coming to the end of my bottle of Baltic Blue, so I'm going to decant a little bit of this over here. And what I'm going to do now is just take that brayer and smooth this out so that I get a nice even coverage. And I'm going to roll it from the brayer directly onto the stencil. Now, I know for my design that I don't want to have a really big background, so I don't need to go side to side and top to bottom. I really just need the center portion of the stencil. Then what I'll do is take my mister bottle. I don't want to get this too wet and too watery, otherwise I'll get a really blurry effect, which is a cool look, but not the one that I'm going for now. So I'm going to hold the mister bottle away and spritz just one time. While this is still wet, I'm going to pull this out from underneath and just set it aside, and I'm going to take that cardstock and quickly place it down and smooth it down pretty firmly. I don't want to let this sit here though, because it can stick and it can tear eventually. I just want it enough to give me that cool reverse stencil effect. So now I'm going to set my stencil aside to be cleaned later. And then what I'll do is grab some of my paints to make a mixture to color in. I'm going to be working with Sargasso. I'm also going to add a little bit of slimed and then some snowflake in there as well. And I'm just going to mix a little bit of the paint directly onto my craft sheet. And this is just to give some color. I'm only going to be filling in a few of the dots, not the entire design. And so I just want to have a couple of different colors here to create a nice mixture. I'm going to add a little bit of water here on the side too, and just pick up some of the colors and just mix until I've got a pretty sort of chalky effect. I love these colors together, and they mix and blend so well. And I'm working with a water brush. You can also use a paintbrush for this if you want to. Water brushes are kind of my go-to for painting because they're easy to clean, and they often have really nice fine tips. So then what I'm going to do is just paint in some of these circles. And I'm not coloring them in completely. I want to keep that sort of sketchy, casual look of the stencil and the overall design of the card. If I need a little bit more fluidity, I can just add a little bit more water to my mixture. And I can also go back and add some more watery mixture in there. And what I wanted to do was create a line sort of from one side to the other so that I would have a nice area of focus for my stamped sentiment, which is the focal piece of the card. I'll just come in here and add a little bit more color. So you can see I'm not coloring completely into the images. I'm just letting it be a nice contrast also with that white background on there. So then as many or as few of those circles as I want to do, and then I can start putting my card together. So let me bring back in the original card here and show you what I've done. So I've edged around the outside of that stenciled piece, again with slimed. Now slimed, remember, is a translucent paint. So that's going to give it a little bit more of a watery effect, and it's going to give it a nice soft look on here too. Then I've got 3 strips of cardstock, and this has just been simply brayered with Sargasso and Baltic blue. I've been mounting things up on foam tape because I've got some twine going around here, and I don't want the paper to bow over with the bulk of that twine going around the back of this. That's where it's secured back on there. Now the stamped focal, Be Your Own Hero, this is also from PaperArtsy, and this is from the Eclectica ESN 27 stamp set. So it's this sentiment right on here. Just simply cut. I've edged the top and bottom with Baltic blue, and then just put everything all together, a little bit of twine here on the front as well. So it's a nice, clean, and simple effect, but I think it really does give a really fun look with that reverse stenciling and some of the painting in there as well. So this is how you can use your stencils and your acrylic paints to create another look with your stenciled backgrounds. Thank you so much for joining me today on Studio SN. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to Studio SN on YouTube, and I'll keep you updated with the very latest stamping and card making videos. In the meantime, please feel free to stop by my website, saranaumann.com, for more paper crafting ideas. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next week.